The Premier is meeting locals at the moment.
She is indeed, Charlotte. Just behind me, the Premier has arrived. She is currently meeting with the Labor candidate for Aspley, Bart Mellish. She's up against Amanda Cooper, and Labor is hoping that the Premier's star power will convince voters to keep Labor in for a third term, as Aspley has a wafer-thin margin of just 1.17%. The main concern for locals here is, of course, congestion. It's estimated at least 70,000 locals travel from here into the city every day. They want a government that can crack congestion. Of course, Labor's priorities as well is also building a second M1, introducing the euthanasia bill, as well as employing almost 10,000 new frontline health workers and more than 2,000 police by 2025. Of course, the border decision yesterday did cause some controversy. We know Greater Sydney is currently still banned from entering Queensland. We know the rest of New South Wales will be allowed in from the 3rd of November. The Premier made her final pitch to voters yesterday in the last Leaders' Debate in Brisbane.
There is a clear choice this Saturday. Do you want stability or do you want chaos and reckless behaviour? Our plan is fully costed, it's fully funded. The LNP have put a pure hoax on regional Queensland.
So the Premier will be staying in Aspley this morning before heading to her own electorate of Inala. We do know there's major storms forecast. We know it's good luck on wedding days for it to rain, Charlotte, but will it be good luck for Annastacia Palaszczuk? We'll just have to wait and see.
Very nice, Brendan. I like that. We will wait and see. Thanks for that. There has been no harder fought seat in the election campaign than South Brisbane. Let's go live to our political reporter, Jonathan Lee. Jonathan, the candidates are out early this morning.
Yeah, they certainly are. I can almost say Brendan stole my thunder there, because I was going to make the point that not just are the candidates out early, but also the voters, and that's perhaps because there are expected storms late this afternoon. Now, there are other more closely contested battles, but perhaps none that are more bitter than what's been going on here in South Brisbane, not just for the past 6 or 8 weeks. This has been going on now for the better part of 3 years. The Greens desperately want this seat, a seat which has become far more progressive, far more eclectic, and they're looking to take it off Jackie Trad. It's also become a proxy battle for a number of very important issues for the left. We're talking about climate change, coal mining, abortion. It's all been fought here in South Brisbane. And you can also not forget that Jackie Trad has been embroiled in a number of scandals. The Cross River Rail project, where a house was bought along the route, and then she was also investigated for meddling in a local school where a new principal was put in place. So it's certainly, or she's certainly become the person the Liberal Party wants to remove, and so too the Labor Party. We caught up, I should say, so too the Green Party. We caught up with the candidate, Amy McMahon, about half an hour ago. She's here handing out how to vote cards, as you'd expect, and this is what she had to say.
The vision that the Greens have been sharing has been so positive, and the feedback that we've been getting from voters on the ground has been so good. People are ready for change. We've had 40 years of Labor representation in this seat, and people are really ready for change. They're fed up with Labor and the LNP taking millions of dollars in corporate donations and organising cash for access meetings. And we've been coming out with this positive vision for Queensland, where we're saying we can use this state's enormous wealth to make sure every Queenslander gets essential services that they need.
Now, Charlotte, if the Greens are successful, if Amy McMahon is successful, she would be the second Greens MP in Queensland's House. It's also very interesting to note that the Liberal Party effectively saved Jackie Trad in 2017 with its preferences. This time around, it's preferencing the Greens Party. It doesn't get any dirtier than that.
Yeah, it's pretty unusual to say the least, of course. Nice and sunny there in Brisbane, but let's take a look now at what is happening with Julia Bradley, and she is live from a polling booth in the battleground electorate of Townsville. Of course, we've seen a lot of coverage there over the past week or two. Julia, it is considered a must-win for Deb Frecklington.
Well, certainly must win for Deb Frecklington. Charlotte, we know that the opposition leaders' eyes are firmly on these 3 key seats of Townsville. Now, the general consensus is that if Deb Frecklington can't win any of these 3 northern Queensland seats, well, she won't be able to form majority government. Now, they're all held extremely tightly by Labor. We know that Deb Frecklington made a last-ditch effort to win over undecided voters here this morning. She was actually voting at this very polling booth. Now, the key seat seats to watch here in northern Queensland is a seat of Mundingborough. Now, that's held on a wafer-thin 1.1% margin by Labor, and that was held by Coralie O'Rourke, but she resigned a number of months ago, making way for candidate Les Walker, a councillor here in Townsville. So he hasn't been given a lot of time to campaign, but he's going up against the LNP's Glenn Doyle, a former police officer who has been surrounded by a bit of controversy during the course of this campaign, slammed over a number of social media posts, one that people were accusing him of being sexist. So the LNP are really hoping that their suite of policies will win over undecided voters. Let me talk you through a couple of them. We know that they've introduced this controversial youth curfew plan for Townsville and Cairns. Also, they're keen to build the new Bradfield Scheme. They're promising voters a $300 rego rebate for every registered vehicle owner, that is. They're partnering with the private sector to fast-track surgeries. And, of course, their big, bold plan to four-lane the Bruce Highway and also build a second M1. Now, Labor is echoing that pledge as well. They want to build a second M1 to bust congestion, introduce legislation to legalise euthanasia as well, and they're promising, of course, to hire thousands more frontline health staff. So something that could work in Deb Frecklington's favour today, though, is reports that we saw yesterday that the Premier actually consulted polling on just how popular border decisions are and the border closure is before she made that announcement that we'd be reopening to more of New South Wales, excluding Sydney.
That polling clearly shows that the Premier of Queensland was using this as a political weapon, and that's exactly what has happened, and it is shocking and it is a disgrace that the Premier has misled Queenslanders.
That research that has been plastered around this afternoon is completely false. It was never given to state government, and that is an LNP smear campaign at the 11th hour.
So, Charlotte, in Townsville, we did see a large swing towards the LNP at the last federal election. That's for the seat of Herbert, so we'll have to wait and see whether that happens this time around as well.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see the correlation between the state and federal elections there in Queensland. Thanks for the update there, Julia. It is going to be a very interesting day ahead, and that is why you should tune in to Sky News tonight from 5 p.m. Queensland time, of course, 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for live rolling coverage of the election. Kieran Gilbert is going to be joined by an all-star panel: Alan Jones, David Littleproud, Murray Watt, Pauline Hanson, Paul Murray, Laura Jays, Andrew Clennell, and many more for all the reaction and results as they happen.